All right, I think we're live. Is that
One
correct,
second.
Ryan?
1 second.
Okay. Hope everybody's phones are working. Mine is not.
Mine's not.
We are live.
Okay, good morning. I call this meeting of the West Virginia Democratic Party Board of Appeals back to order. This meeting was adjourned from our Friday 16th. It was adjourned on Friday the 16th. So today, welcome back and thank you for making time to be here. We'll call roll to see if we have a quorum. Susan Miley,
Here.
Pam Klein,
Here.
David Thompson,
Here.
and I'm here. We have a quorum. Okay, when we last met, when we last met, we held a hearing on the Powell v. Hively grievance. Mr. Powell presented evidence, provided testimony, and gave oral arguments. Mr. Hively did not provide a response. He did not respond to any of the emails or the certified letter that was sent to him, and he was not present at the hearing to present any evidence or testimony. Following oral arguments, the board asked questions of Mr. Powell and discussed the case. Board Member Klein moved that the board order that Mr. Hively provide the recording of the December 9th meeting, bank statements from all banks with accounts of the West Virginia Young Democrats from November 2022 present, and all minutes to meetings of the West Virginia Young Democrats from November 2022 to present to this board within 24 hours, and that each side may file a brief with the board within 3 calendar days, and that this board adjourn until today at 8 a.m. And here we are. Immediately following the recess of the February 16th meeting at 5:05 p.m., an email was sent to Mr. Hively requesting those items and informing him that he could file a brief with the board within 3 calendar days. There was no response to the request for items. No brief was filed. However, our records show that the email was opened at 5:06 p.m. Mr. Powell filed a brief on February 19th, and that brief was forwarded to all board members. On February, now my phone's working. On February 19th, board member Klein sent an email requesting that 3 individuals be invited to this meeting to provide additional information to the board. The rules of procedure of was that 3F5 provides that the Board of Appeals may request persons who are neither party nor witnesses to the proceedings to testify and provide other evidence pertaining to the issues. A request was then sent to those 3 individuals requesting that they attend our meeting this morning. We will hear from those that are here today and have an opportunity to ask them questions. Based on our rules of procedure, we have 30 days from today to file a report with our findings and decision. However, we can adopt findings in our decision today. This is an early meeting. However, many of us and some of our guests today have to get to work. I know I do. So let's ask all the questions that we need to ask, but be as brief as possible and respect everyone's work schedule. Are there any questions from the board members about what we are doing today?
I have none. None.
Okay, I'm hearing none. I'll move on. Okay, we'll begin with our first guest, Carrie Clendenning. Ms. Clendenning, welcome and thank you for being here today. Could you please share with us anything that you would like to about the events leading to the December 9th meeting, your role in the December 9th meeting, and tell us what happened in that meeting? Okay.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Oh, there's a cat.
I'm sorry. That was my cat.
I can hear you fine.
She has lots to say.
Yeah.
No, I served as the parliamentarian for the meeting, and I watched the hearing and I read the grievance, and I thought that I should just give you guys an overview of what happened. The day before the meeting, I met with Jacob. He had told me that there were 3 members left, 3 active members left, and that was Ben. I apologize, I don't remember his last name. He was away at college. Chase Gerald himself. So I read through the losing the Constitution of the Young Dems, and per Article 5, Section 4, it seemed to me that he could appoint. I had no reason not to believe that he was not president at that time. I just think I should back up and preface it and say I'm not familiar with the Young Dems and how they operate, so I was not aware that they did not have they had not had a convention and so forth and so on. So the so the meeting started, and sorry, I don't know why I'm a little bit nervous because I know some of you guys. And I apologize if I'm speaking super quick, but we had met, and I was like, well, let's work you out a script because, you know, I wanted the Young Dems to be up and running. I feel like they're an important part of our Democrat infrastructure. And so he had told me about Jarryd. And at the time, Jarryd was portrayed to me as someone that was going to try and infiltrate the system and cause all these problems. I was like, well, it'd probably be the best idea if you had a script and that you're ready, but leave the meeting open for discussion afterwards. So I said, you can appoint me as parliamentarian if you would like. It's fine with me. That was my idea. And so the meeting was called to order, and he went through some order of business, and then he deferred to me. And I did say, based off a legal opinion, there was no lawyer involved or lawyer retained or hired. That based off Article 5, Section 4 of the Constitution, that he could appoint, and that the office of president wasn't vacant because, as it was explained to me, that he, you know, was vice president when Laura Walker left, and that he automatically could ascend. Looking back now, I feel very apologetic for that role that I played. If I would have known what I knew after reading the grievance and in the rules and stuff, I would have not participated in that way, because that's not the way it should have went. And I'm open to any questions.
Does any of the board members have questions?
I don't. I just thank you for showing up, Carrie, and letting us know what happened from your perspective. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for showing up. Pam has a question, I believe. Go ahead, Pam.
I do appreciate you taking the time and coming up, and don't be nervous. We're all the same team here. I would just like to know a little more about what you were told about Jarryd and how he was portrayed to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And I want to preface one more thing and say that I really don't think any of this was malice. I think it was immaturity and inexperience. But I hate to use this term, but he was a crony within the party, and that he was just trying to infiltrate the Young Dems. And from reading the grievance, I believe Jarryd was actually a member and a vice president. So, Jarryd, I apologize. I did not know that. But I hope that answers your question, Pam.
Thank you. It does.
That's one thing for the record. Jarryd, are you on?
I am, yes.
So just a few months ago, you were chosen as Young Dem of the Year, co-Young Dem of the Year.
I was, yes.
And who made that decision, to your knowledge?
Mr. Hively.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, Carrie, thank you very much for joining us early, and I appreciate you coming on and for your honesty. And our next guest is our treasurer, Nick Casey. Nick is a lawyer and a CPA, and is the treasurer of the West Virginia Democratic Party. Board member Klein requested that he attend because of his expertise in banking, and was hopeful that he could provide some insight on this matter, especially as it relates to the financial issues that were discovered. Nick, you have read the grievance and are aware of the financial issues connected with this grievance.
Yes.
You've already provided us with some information in writing, and thank you for that. And I'm going to turn this over to you to share your thoughts with us on this matter.
Oh, thank you. This is just broad scale. What I did is I took a look at what the Secretary of State had on file, and for the West Virginia Young Democrats, they actually, they list them on the campaign finance sections as in existence, and they show their last report was filed for the third quarter of 2023. So the third quarter of 2023, their ending cash balance was $4,293.60. And that statement is signed off on by Chase Jarryd. He's listed as treasurer. And then at the end of those documents, there's an oath affirmation where you affirm or swear that the truth and accuracy of the statement. So he is on there. So I looked at that amount of money. I looked back at some of their prior reports. They had a few expenditures. They had two or three. They had two actually. Act Blue contributions, continuing looking contributions, and they had two or three continuing expenses. One was the Act Blue charge, and the other one was like a banking charge of several dollars a month that came out. But no other interesting activity, at least on the third quarter of 2023. And the question posed for me in my mind was, and I understand, or I'm told that their charter has been revoked, yet they still appear as an active campaign political action committee on the Secretary of State's webpage. If they're in fact not in existence, then I took so okay, what do we do about the finances? Again, as I understand our bylaws, the State Executive Committee is the dominant, preeminent, sole existence, if you would, of the Democratic Party, and everything else is underneath that. So if the West Virginia Young Democrats don't exist anymore, then there's that floating $4,000 some dollars, less whatever other reductions might occur automatically in month to month, that needs to be dealt with. And so I took a look at that. My experience is that they need to close it out. Either they need to close it out, or the State Executive Committee needs to close it out since they don't exist anymore, and to take those funds, by reporting to the Secretary of State, take those funds and bring them back into the accounts of the State Democratic Executive Committee, and do that actually in collaboration with the Secretary of State, by explaining to the Secretary of State they no longer exist, that I believe this is the right solution, is to bring the money back to the state level and put it in the state party. They may have some different opinions on that at the Secretary of State's office, but I've had this experience before. If it was a valid committee, it could transfer the money up to us at the state level. Since it's no longer in existence, it's just exists on paper, if you would, or electronically, Secretary of State might want to take some other avenue to bring it in. So since I assume that Chase Jarryd is in control of those accounts, and so my recommendation was that Chase be asked to simply transfer those funds out of the existing accounts to the state account. Secondly, that Chase file a final report with the Secretary of State. If he chooses not to, then again, I have to collaborate with the Secretary of State to see how to close that out. And that'd be a lawful transfer over to the state party. And then the state party has those funds to deal with. I yield to the leadership of the state party, but if those funds were raised on behalf of Young Dems for Young Dem activities, it would seem to me to be consistent with what the donors thought they were donating to, that the state ought to at least fulfill the use of those for Young Dems. Another alternative, or partial alternative, would be to just retain those, and without spending any of it, and to retain those. And if the new appropriately chartered Young Dems is created, to then transfer those funds back to them. State party transfer to another organization, state party. We can do that at Secretary of State's office. But that was kind of my look at it. If there's a failure of cooperation by the people that control those accounts, this again is a policy decision, but my experience in other settings is what you do is you go down to the Circuit Court of Kanawha County, because that's where we're all located. You file a declaratory judgment action, which is not a jury. You ask the court to declare that in this case, the West Young Dems no longer exists. There's a balance in there. Bylaws say that the state party is a preeminent Democratic organization in the state, and get the court to issue a court order that says, bank, send the money back to the state party. And then whatever other conditions the court might put on that, the court might say, well, hold it, but use it for Young Dems in the future. It might say, it's yours. There are no constraints. We decide what to do with it. But that was what my review indicated.
All right, thank you, Nick. Does any of the board members have any questions for Nick?
I think that's very straightforward, if I may, Mike.
I agree.
I'm sorry. Nicholas County had an incident where we had funds and did not have proper reporting, and we had to pay those funds back and restart with the Secretary of State. Did you notice as you were working with that everything was kind of in compliance with where those funds came from, and that they knew where those funds came from?
Yeah, I didn't look back at all the reports, but the ones I saw looked like Act Blue contributions. and then because there's an absolute charge going with each one of them, and there's a bank charge. So at least at the time that was filed on December 4th, 2023. And assuming that the oath and affirmation are true, that the oath and affirmation, that should have been the bank balance at that time. So it's not that old.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Have we had any, but I was really glad to hear that they did at least file the report in December, but have we heard from Chase at all?
I haven't attempted or have any communication with him.
Thanks, Nick.
Ryan, have you talked to Chase at all?
So Mr. Jarryd was shared on the same invitation that Mr. Casey, Mr. Hively, and Ms. Clendenning were shared on. We do know that he opened the email, but we haven't had any communication as far as this grievance or this hearing and this continuation. I have had a conversation via text with Mr. Jarryd, but that was prior to, and there was actually no discussion directly about this grievance, and that was about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll now open the floor for the board for any discussion. And when the board's ready, we can review the draft report of our findings and orders. Is there any discussion?
I think it's
Not for me at this time.
Yeah, not for me either.
Okay. All right. Well, as you all know, we recently adopted rules of procedure, which very closely parallel the DNC challenge process. This is our first grievance using the new procedures, so it has been a bit different. One of the aspects that is very different for us is the requirement to file a report with findings of fact, conclusions of law, to include party rules, and the disposition of the grievance. The benefit of this report is that it lays out both the facts of the grievance and the underlying rules that we are here to uphold. The report requires us to justify our findings and our rulings with facts, citations of party rules. As Mr. Hively did not file a response or submit any evidence contrary to what Mr. Powell provided, and because Mr. Hively abandoned his case, the bylaws provide that we find in favor of Mr. Powell. We have a draft report based on facts of the case and related party rules and the likely findings of the board. You all have a draft of the report. However, I'm going to ask that Ryan show the report on the screen and that we review the findings and orders together. We can amend any of this report, of course, but I want to make sure that we were all agreeable to the findings and orders. And Ryan, could you share the screen with the drafted report? And we'll go over anything that the board wants, but especially the findings and the orders. Okay. Now, do you want me to just read it, or should we just go ask if there are any amendments? Ryan, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as Chair Pushkin has asked, I will move along to the findings and the orders.
Okay.
There are 14 findings of fact. One, Hively was never appointed or elected as president of the West Virginia Young Democrats. Two, Hively was not appointed as executive vice president in August 2022 or to any other office of the West Virginia Young Democrats per the provisions of the West Virginia Young Democrats Constitution. Three, Hively did not have authority or standing to claim that he was the president of the West Virginia Young Democrats. Sorry, I'm going to make a change there. In November 2022 or act accordingly. For the West Virginia Young Democrats is an organization which has historically been recognized by the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee and therefore is subject to the rules of the National Democratic Party and those of the WVSDEC, as well as those of the YDA, the Young Democrats of America. and where applicable to Robert's Rules of Order, most recent version. 5, up to July 2023, the West Virginia Young Democrats was chartered by the Young Democrats of America. 6, the Young Democrats of America is a national organization which charters local Young Democrat organizations, primarily in states. 7, historically, WVYD has been chartered by the YDA and recognized by the WVSDEC and has had voting representation on the WVSDEC. 8, beginning July 2023 to date, the WVYD has not been chartered by the YDA. According to YDA President Watham Akama, the WVYD charter expired in July 2023, and to date, the WVYD has not been rechartered. 9, on November 7th, 2023, Hively, holding himself out as president of the WVYD, which at that time was not chartered by the YDA, issued a 30-day notice to a very limited number of individuals announcing a WVYD meeting on December 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. via Zoom, the primary purpose of which was to elect officers, including the president. The 30-day notice issued by Hively specifically refers to, quote, new business election of officers. 10, the December 9th meeting was not publicly noticed and was not open to the public. 11, WVYD Constitution provides that WVYD officers must be elected via convention. 12, the meeting of December 9 failed to meet the requirements provided for in the WVYD Constitution for a convention to elect officers. 13, the meeting of December 9th did not meet the requirements of Democratic Party rules regarding effective notice, public notice, or open meetings. Additionally, the meeting did not meet some of the 6 basic elements of an open party, in that the meeting was not publicized fully in a manner as to ensure notice to all interested parties, and the qualifications of offices and the procedures for election were not fully publicized. 14, in addition, Hively did not respond to the Board of Appeals' request for the recording of the December 9th meeting, bank account information from November 2022 to present, minutes of the WVYD meetings from November 2022 to present, and a copy of the legal opinion referenced in the December 9th meeting, allegedly stating that Hively had the authority to appoint himself president and to appoint other officers who, under the Constitution, must be elected. I will then move through the conclusion of laws and findings and highlight the findings for each one. So under related to Hively as misrepresentation, finding, the Board of Appeals finds that Hively was never appointed executive vice president of the WVYD according to the process provided for in the WVYD Constitution, nor did he have the authority or standing to claim that he was president in November 2022. Additionally, the BOA finds that Hively was not elected or appointed president of the WVYD at the December 9th meeting or thereafter. Additional finding, the Board of Appeals finds that Hively did not have the authority or standing to call the December 9th meeting, nor did he have the authority or standing to appoint officers. All actions of the December 9th meeting are, therefore, found to be null and void. B, related to the loss of charter. There are no findings or orders under that segment. C, related to abandonment of case. Finding, the Board of Appeals finds that Hively abandoned this matter, and the Board of Appeals finds in favor of Powell. D, related to party rules and recognition by the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee. Finding, the Board of Appeals finds that the December 9th meeting violated party rules related to effective notice, open meetings, and the 6 basic elements of an open party, and therefore all actions at the December 9th meeting are null and void. The WVYD must follow their own constitution unless it conflicts with another governing authority. The WVYD Constitution was not followed with regard to designating officers, holding meetings, holding an annual convention, noticing the December 9th meeting, holding the December meeting, and the nomination and election of officers. The National Charter, Article 10, Section 3 requires, quote, each official body of the Democratic Party recognized by or created under the authority of this charter shall adopt and conduct its affairs in accordance with written rules, which rules shall be consistent with the charter, the bylaws, and other provisions adopted pursuant to authority of the charter, including resolutions or other actions of the National Convention. The WVYD has not conducted its affairs consistent with Democratic Party rules. The bylaws of the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee, Article 4, Section 1, provides, quote, "The West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee is the supreme governing authority of the Democratic Party in West Virginia and shall have control and supervision over all matters relating to or affecting the party organizations and campaigns. All other political committees, clubs, and organizations, incorporated or unincorporated, posting as a segment of the Democratic Party within the state or within any political subdivision thereof, shall be subordinate thereto and under its direction," end quote. Organizations recognized by the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee must comply with the bylaws of the WVSDEC, the National Charter, the DNC bylaws, and the 6 elements of an open party. YDA is recognized by the National Democratic Party Charter, and the WVYD, an organization formerly chartered by YDA, has historically been recognized by the West Virginia Democratic Party, and therefore, the West Virginia Young Democrats must conduct its affairs in accordance with written rules, which rules are to be consistent with the National Charter, the DNC bylaws, and other provisions adopted pursuant to authority of the National Charter, including resolutions or other actions of the National Convention, including the 6 basic elements of an open party and the WVDP bylaws. Finding: the BOA finds that the WVYD has not conducted its affairs in accordance with written rules, which are consistent with party rules, and therefore is not recognized by the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee. Section E, related to managing accounts of the West Virginia Young Democrats and potential development of a newly recognized West Virginia Young Democrat organization. Finding: the Board of Appeals finds that in the event that an entity representing Young Democrats in West Virginia seeks a charter with the Young Democrats of America and recognition by the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee, it must first comply with party rules, including adopting written rules that are consistent with party rules, and then make application to Young Democrats of America for a charter and to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee for recognition. It will be up to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee to determine whether to recognize the entity. Order: the Board of Appeals orders that Hively turn over all West Virginia Young Democrat records and accounts of the West Virginia Young Democrats to include banking, social media, postal, etc., and the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee is authorized to take legal action should Hively fail to comply. F, regarding West Virginia Young Democrat finances. Order: because there is currently no chartered organization known as the West Virginia Young Democrats, the cash balance of $4,293.60, less any recurring bank charges and web charges that may have reduced the cash balance since the reporting period 2023 third quarter report, shall be turned over to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee by Jacob Hively, the last acting president of the expired West Virginia Young Democrats, or Chase Jarryd, the last acting treasurer of the expired West Virginia Young Democrats, within 7 calendar days of adoption of this ruling. Additionally, any and all bank records from November 2022 to the present, pertaining to the West Virginia Young Democrats shall be provided to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee by Jacob Hively or Chase Jarryd within 7 calendar days of the adoption of this ruling. Order: the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee shall hold such funds to support the development and creation of a new West Virginia Young Democrats statewide organization and development of county and or regional Young Democrat clubs seeking to become chartered. When a statewide West Virginia Young Democrats committee is chartered by the Young Democrats of America, registers with the West Virginia Secretary of State as a political action committee, and receives written confirmation of final acceptance of registration from the West Virginia Secretary of State, the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee shall contribute any remaining balance of the funds to the newly chartered statewide West Virginia Young Democrats. The West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee will assist in any required filings with the West Virginia Secretary of State to publicly document the transfer of the funds and closing of the now expired West Virginia Young Democrats organization and the contribution of the funds to a newly chartered statewide West Virginia Young Democrats organization. Order, in the event the funds and bank account records are not timely provided to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee, the chair of the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee is directed to initiate legal proceedings to obtain control of the funds and bank records.
Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions?
I would like to ask one of Jarryd, please.
Sorry, is that Pam?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You have a
Chairperson.
question of Jarryd?
Yeah, I just would like to ask Jarryd how he became a member of the Young Democrats.
No, absolutely. So I graduated high school in 2019, and then I was running for my first House of Delegates campaign in 2020. Shortly after then, I got involved with the College Democrats. And in 2021, I was a member in 2020 of the College Democrats, but in 2021, they asked me to run for the secretary position, and I became secretary of the College Democrats. So since at least 2020, because there was a cross charter between the West Virginia College Democrats and the West Virginia Young Democrats, where if you were a member of the College Democrats, they would credential you within the West Virginia Young Democrats because, you know, you'd be eligible since you were a Democrat under 36, but you just so happened to also be going to college at the time. So that's how I got involved with the organization. And I even remember, was it before the last convention, there was even like some participation between the College Democrat officers at the time, and giving some advice and, like, you know, figuring out how to make the convention really a successful operation that young people all across the state could come and participate in and really be proud of their party.
Thank you, Jarryd.
Any other questions regarding the report? Any amendments to the report? Okay. If there are no amendments or and questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Pam made the motion, and David Thompson seconded. And is there any discussion?
Chairperson, I would like to say that I think we have done the due diligence to this grievance, not only filed by Jarryd Powell, the chair of the Marion County Democratic Executive Committee, but by who was named the Young Democrat of the Year. It's based on facts. It's based on the rules and procedures, the West Virginia of the body and the West Virginia Democratic Party and the National Democratic Party. And it's based on the law, and I think it stands fully on its merit.
Further discussion? I'd say briefly, I appreciate everybody's time and the attention that we put into this and the detail, and I think the report's fairly thorough. I also just want to say it's important for the growth of this party for us to continue to reach out to young Democrats across this state, and there are a lot of them, way more than three. I hear from them all the time. I think that a lot of the things that the Republicans are doing during this session, they turn young people off. Young people don't care about the types of issues that these Republicans continue to push, especially in election year. I think that we could, obviously the future of this party is in the young people in West Virginia, and we need to do whatever we can to help restart this organization and help it grow. And very optimistic about that. But the first step is the adoption of this report. So, is there any further discussion? All in favor of the adoption of this report, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The report is adopted. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, this report will be served on all parties to the grievance and reported to the West Virginia State Democratic Executive Committee at the next regular meeting, which is March 18th, and will be available to the public on request. Are there any questions or comments before we adjourn? Well, this concludes our business today. I really want to thank you again for logging on early and taking care of this. We all go to work today. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Pam Klein moved to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Nick, thanks for coming on. Jarryd, thanks for coming back on. I think Carrie already logged off, but I'll thank Carrie later. But thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you,
Hope your
guys.
phone-
Have a
hope
good day.
everybody's phone comes back